just before selling Expensya, we almost acquired this competitor that was acquired.
Really
So,
interesting.
fast forward 6 years, we outgrew them 10x,
Hmm.
and we almost acquired.
That was the voice of Karim Jouini, co-founder and CEO of Thundercode.ai. I am your host, Ali Zwail, and this is the Startups Arabia podcast, where you learn about the Arab startups ecosystem from the best founders, investors, and operators in the region. My guest today is Karim Jouini, co-founder and CEO of Thundercode.ai. Karim was born in Tunisia, and he's a well-traveled geek who started his first software company at the age of 16. He studied software engineering and AI at INSA Toulouse in the University of Western Ontario. He joined Microsoft, where he spent 7 years from software engineer to engineering manager, and truly fell in love with testing and quality. Then he co-founded Expensya, an AI-powered expense management startup that grew across Europe and was acquired for over $100 million. Now he's building Thundercode, a no-code agentic AI testing solution that empowers both developers and non-technical teams to automate end-to-end testing at scale without writing a single line of code. He's passionate about using Thundercode to help companies ship faster with confidence. Please enjoy this interview with Karim, where he shares the ups and downs of building Expensya all the way into the acquisition, what he learned there that he's applying to Thundercode, and what Thundercode is all about and its exciting future. Enjoy. Just a small thing before we get started. Between recording this episode and publishing it online, Thundercode has been rebranded to Thunders, which just shows how fast Karim and his team are moving. So every time you hear Thundercode, just replace it in your head with Thunders. It's still an incredibly inspiring conversation that I know you'll love. Welcome to the Startups Arabia podcast. My guest today is Karim Jouini. Karim is the founder of Thundercode.ai, a very interesting new startup. But in a special way as well, Karim has already founded and exited his first startup, Expensya. We'll go through the story, but I think it was built out of Tunis mostly and sold to Swedish company Medius. So there's a huge amount of learning I'm sure we're going to have. We're going to talk about everything from that to, the challenges of being dual based as a company and all these things, and the future, hopefully incredibly bright, of Thundercode. So welcome, Karim.
Thanks for having me.
Karim, I've been really looking forward to this, but I'm going to start very early, like years ago. Karim, I mean, you seem to have been keeping yourself very busy since very early in your life. So, I mean, while you were studying at INSA Toulouse, you also worked at Parrot, and you did a master's in machine learning. It seems like it was a remote, course, but still, it's a master's in machine learning, and you started working in Microsoft while still studying. So, what's going on here?
I have to say, I'm a nerd. I had my first computer. I think it was five. I was 5 years old. I was living in India at that time. My father was a diplomat, so I was in India at that time. My father bought us a computer for the house, and I was fascinated by this machine, and I started to learn pretty early. I think I started to type before I learned to write, and some people would say that I never learned to write, because my writing is so horrible. And then, yes, I always looked at what can I do with this, So I actually created my first software company, although I didn't call it a startup at that time. I didn't even know what a startup is, but I created my first company. I was 16. I was in high school, and we were building some sort of mini ERP for cyber cafes. If people still remember what a cyber cafe
Yep.
is, and so yeah, I was passionate about that, and then yeah, I was soul searching and career searching thinking, computers and programming and all of that is a tool. It's not a job. Is what do I want to do with that tool? Yes, I was soul searching for quite some time.
Okay, you were soul searching, and you were also working hard. I mean, this is like a lot of things to do at the same time. So, I mean, how do you think like hard work in and of itself has contributed to where you are today?
Of course. Yes, of course, and when you're passionate, you don't really count. So yes, I did many competitions. I built multiple mini businesses. I helped other people build businesses. As you said, I studied AI. I actually went to Canada. I did a semester of AI in the University of Western in Canada. So I was really hungry to learn and hungry to contribute.
Yeah, it's and by the way, I mean, it's like a weird segue, but I think Amjad Masad, who was the founder of Replit, of course, the famous vibe coding platform now, he started. I think his first idea was also creating software for cyber cafes. So this is a very good sign.
That's funny. Okay, you
While he
should do
was
an
in
intro to
Jordan.
both of us and say, as
Yeah, exactly.
entrepreneurs in
Actually.
cyber cafes.
So yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really promising. So anyway, going back to what we were saying, it seems like having a technical skill, like rather than a soft skill, makes it easier to be valuable early in your career. It's. Would you agree with that? The idea that coding is it still important?
Well, I think you need both in reality. I think the hard skills are the ones that I think when you don't have them, they seem the hardest. Okay, because you need to
Mm,
go deep in topics. But I believe that to be successful, you need both, and it is also a challenge in the region. Like me as an employer, I do actually invest a lot into giving soft skills to the people I hire
mm,
because I don't know how it is across the whole region, but in Tunisia, you find a lot of super talented young engineers with really deep hard skills, but not necessarily the required soft skills to sell yourself, to sell what you're doing, to also make sure that what you're building is linked to what the customer wants. So I was telling you about my first experience building software for Cyber Cafe. In that experience, I learned the hard way that actually building software is easier than selling it. Selling it in the broad meaning of selling it, because you need
mm,
you need to make the customer understand the pain. You need to make the customer understand the value. You need to sell it. You need to do customer support. My software got pirated. Like it was. So I had to fight piracy and make sure that people are paying me. And so I learned really the hard way that out of a software company, the software is the easiest. So I kind of
mm,
disagree that hard skills are the most important, but I just believe that without hard skills, it's bullshit. You see what I mean? So you
mm.
need the hard skills, obviously,
Yep.
because otherwise it's bullshit. But you need the soft skills to make it shine.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. And by the way, I mean, for that first company, I mean, you're 16 years old. I mean, what made you make this software? I mean, how did this come about?
It's actually this almost the same story as every venture I worked in or created. Is I'm from a middle class family, so never really needed money, but going out with your friends, etc., is expensive. And as I was feeling a bit embarrassed asking my parents for as much money just to go out with my friends, so I wanted to get some pocket money, and so I started working in a cyber cafe, just summer job, just managing people that come in, come out. I write down when they came in and then do the billing for them and all of that. And God, that was super boring, and it wasn't well paid. And so, as I'm a nerd and I knew a little bit of programming, I was like, okay, I'm going to build an app for myself so that I can get some slack, and not really work, but still get paid. And then when I built that app, the cyber cafe owner wanted to buy a license, to be able to
Mm,
use it even when I'm not here. And that's when I realized that software is actually a business, not just a hobby. And I got into the subscription model. So I was selling it around $100 a year, the license,
nice,
and I spent my whole high school selling it everywhere in Tunisia. So every cyber cafe was using it.
nice. So I mean, Tunisia has you to thank for their for the internet revolution in the country. All right, so
Kinda.
yeah, so going back like a bit forward in your career, so to speak, you've spent over 6 years at Microsoft. Dream job for a software engineer from a good school, living in Paris, and you decide to leave your senior development lead position at Microsoft and to start Expensya. Tell me about how you made that decision and where the idea for Expensya came from.
Well, I think it's a mix of so many things. So yes, I loved my time at Microsoft. I have to say I'm a Microsoftie deep down. So I started in Redmond, where I was a developer for a short period of
Hmm.
time. Then Microsoft acquired a company in Paris. I moved with that acquisition, and then I grew in the company as a senior developer. Then I was engineering manager, so I was managing a little pod, a little autonomous team, and I really loved these years. But what triggered my motivation to create Expensya is multiple things. One is the pain, as I told you, it's a common story through everything I went through. Is that I was traveling a lot and I really hated managing my expenses. And at Microsoft, it was just impressively painful. You know, it's like you keep the
Yep.
receipts and then you type them in an Excel and then you take a white paper and then you tape your receipts in a white paper and then you scan it and then you mail it and then it's just and it takes weeks and weeks and weeks. And I was like, there is no way that there is not a market for this. So that was one of the triggers. The other trigger is
Hmm.
that I'm hungry for impact in Tunisia and for the region. I've been out of Tunisia for uh, more than 10 years, and I felt like I can have an impact much more in Tunisia than elsewhere, because Tunisia is a small country. It's a nation's ecosystem. I felt I want to do something bigger than myself, so that will also played in it. And the third that we don't often talk about it is the timing. I believe that in ventures, one of the key success factors is the timing. So you have to come at the right time, not too early, not too late. And I felt that it was the right timing for disrupting that space in Europe. That was our focus market. And at the end, it worked reasonably well. And when I say it's the timing, is there were going to be regulation changes that would make our business flourish. There was also a timing in terms of quality of smartphones that you could expect in companies. There was also a timing in terms of cost of AI, because Expensya is an AI-driven expense management system where you can just snap a photo of a receipt and we process all of that. And so that has compute cost. And we saw these compute costs going down enough to be affordable to do it with AI versus sending it to India or Tunisia or any other, low wage country. And so the combination of all of that made us believe that that was the exact time we should be launching. And that
Mm.
is a big part of why we launched Expensya.
So it sounds like the idea was in your head for a while and you were like playing around with it. And so when all these factors came into place, it was clear to you that now is the time to make the move. Or was it like looking, or is this a story that you've kind of looking back, you realize that the timing was perfect because of this?
It's both. It's really we did a real market study, kinda, meaning we looked at existing solutions. We were like, the experience of doing expense management at Microsoft was so horrible. So we looked around
Yep.
us and we found it horrible everywhere. And then we were like, this is such an old problem. For sure, there is existing software, and there was existing software, obviously, because the problem is old.
Hmm.
And so we looked at the existing software in Europe, and it really sucked. And we were like,
Yep.
these guys are not stupid. They don't build software that sucks. There must be a reason. And when we looked at the reason, it was obvious to us that the reasons they had were being lifted. Okay, and so it was the right
Mm.
timing to start something that would not suck just because the conditions that made the other one suck was changing. Okay, and so
Yep.
we
Yep.
that's when we said, okay, this is the time to go for it.
So that was kind of the good luck part of it. That the timing was
Yes,
right.
yes, absolutely.
That sounds great. So, what's a factor that contributed to your success that nobody from the outside would guess?
Uh, that's a good thing. I think it's hard to really know what made success, but I would say there are two or three things that you don't see from outside. One is, I think as founders, we have something that I think helps to succeed is we are what we call macro optimist and micro pessimist, meaning that
Mm,
we we go deep into details because we take nothing for granted. You see what I mean? And we don't believe in some type of delegation where you delegate up to not understanding. For me, you have to hire people that are better than you. You delegate to them that function or that task or that mission, but you have to still be able to understand it. And there is an example I give when people tell me that means you can't delegate. I tell them it's like, let's say I can't do a cake. Okay, I'm not good at cooking, especially cakes. And we need to do a cake for the team. And I ask you to do a cake. I delegate to you because I believe you do it better than me. But I am a very good cake eater. I can tell you if it's good. You see what I mean? Because it's a different skill. Making a cake or eating it is two different skills. And so with Jihad, we are like that. Like we believe that we should taste everything in the company. We should keep a very high bar, and some people would call it control freak, maybe. And I think that that's one area. And I think in when you are in new ecosystems where you have less startup experience in the ecosystem, it's important to keep that mindset. A second is that we believe that the team is what will make the company shine, and it's not
mhm.
like we are nice people. It's just it's scientific. We've done Microsoft days, both my co-founder and myself. We see how Microsoft treats its employees really well. We see how you feel you're part of something, and we see how that drives performance. And then we it pushed us to study it. Like I personally spent quite some time studying engagement in general. Like how do you
Mm,
keep employees engaged? What does that mean? What are the level of engagement in the world? And there is a study that I think every entrepreneur should read. It's called "The State of the Workplace" by Gallup. It's pretty short. It's released
yeah.
every 2 to 3 years, and it analyzes the level of engagement in the economy. And it's shocking. The level of disengagement is in a country like France. The level of disengagement is above 80%. So eighty
Yeah.
percent of
Shocking.
employees consider that they're not highly engaged. And so with Jihad, every month we sit and we try to analyze the level of engagement of our team and understand what can we do different to raise the bar. And we spent quite a lot of energy there, and I think it made a difference.
Cool. And when did you, okay, I mean, you have this idea and you start working on it. How did you or first realize that, yes, you do have product market fit? What you produced as a solution to the problem is what something the market wants.
That's a good point. I think we realized the opposite. Like we knew that we have product market fit because we knew we did not have product market fit for some time. Because we worked on a product that we really loved. We had one customer in mind or one ICP in mind, and that was Microsoft. Kind of like the companies that look like Microsoft. So we worked on it. We were ready to ship, and then companies like Microsoft were not buying from us for many reasons that we
Mm,
didn't know at that time because we were not mature enough. Like enterprises don't buy from very small startups, especially these kind of products that touch every employee. It's too
yep.
risky to just deploy a crappy product or a non-mature product.
Hmm.
And so we didn't have a market. Like we spent months without any customer. So we had to pivot and say, okay, we're going to earn our right to sell to enterprise. And so we're going to earn it by going SMB first, like selling to one-man companies and then selling to 10 people companies and then selling to 100 people companies and go up the ladder. And it took quite some time to click. And you realize you click when you can no longer handle the growth. Like our problem every week was how do we serve the new customers of the week? And that, to be honest, took us at least 2 years. And that's my biggest regret in Expensya is that we lost 2 to 3 years getting to product market fit. That if we studied it enough early, we would have done it differently.
So, I mean, of course, hindsight is always like 2020, but do you really, I mean, you had a reasonable or approach. You tried one segment and that didn't work, and so you pivoted to another segment. If you had maybe no amount of research would have told you which was the right segment to attack first with your product.
You're right, but if we did real MVPs, like I think we built too
Mm,
much before trying to sell it, and so we
okay,
should have tried to sell it earlier, realize
right.
earlier that this is not going to work, and pivot before you finish building it. And we were
Got it.
so obsessively convinced about the product market fit because we were customers,
Hmm.
of this thing,
Yep, yep.
that I think we got it wrong there.
Got it. All right. So, were there any times during the journey that you thought you might have to give up on the idea of
Oh yeah,
Expensia?
oh yeah, multiple times, and at least I would say there were three highlights. So three
Hmm.
times where I really wanted to quit. One time was pretty bad, and every time I was, I didn't do it because out of the three, one is we got really lucky, and out of the
Hmm.
two others, we were not brave enough to stop. Like one of the key one where I really thought about quitting is when I convinced my co-founder to join me. So as for a little bit of history, I actually started alone this venture because
Okay.
I wanted to do it with Jihad, my co-founder, but he was in a time in his life where his wife was pregnant and it wasn't the right time, and we are both immigrants in France, and we have all the papers and all of that. So anyway, I started alone, and as I was making progress through the journey, I kept Jihad up to date. Like every 4 to 6 weeks, I would meet with him, keep him warm and excited.
Hmm.
And at some point, he said, "You know what? I'm joining." So he decided to move to Tunis from Paris with his 6 months old kid. And at that specific time when he moved to Tunis, that was the hardest part of Expensya, unrelated to him. And so that was a
Hmm.
time where I really thought about it. But the fact that I made Jihad move his whole family, made it way too hard to go through it.
To give up. So it
Yeah,
was like he was like there are many things that stress people out in life, and he had all of them. So he just made a big move. He just had a small child, and he's in a startup, and the startup is
exactly. And
has
his
challenges.
co-founder is
So
thinking about quitting. So I never told him.
well, he's gonna find out. I have a feeling after he listens to it. So what a way to find out. So any other times that you felt that maybe you want to tell your investors, sorry, we're not gonna make it, and there's no market for us.
No, no. Actually, I think every time I thought about quitting is when there is a combination of things. You see what I mean? Like the things where you think there is an expression in Silicon Valley that is a bit horrible, but it says it's the "I'm fucked, it's over" moment.
Hmm.
And the "I'm fucked, it's over" moments come usually as a combination of you have your own personal issues, because we are human beings going through this
Yep.
venture.
Yep.
You have family, you have relationships, you have kids, you have so if your situation at home is challenging, plus a startup is always challenging, so it's never growing as much as you want and all of that,
Hmm.
then the combination of both make you perceive outside issues as bigger than you would have
Hmm.
perceived them if you're in a good shape and in a good mood. You see what I mean? And so
Yeah.
typically there was one case where my competitor got acquired, and at
Hmm.
that time I didn't know it was a good idea. It was a good news for me. When someone you're competing with gets acquired to build a much bigger story, you
Hmm.
start to think that, okay, they're already bigger than me. Now they have infinite money, and they're
Hmm.
merging to become a suite. And so, yeah, there are times like that where you think, okay, it's I'm fucked, it's over. But
Yep.
then you always build a plan on how do you
Yeah.
go with that. And for the story, just before selling Expensya, we almost acquired this competitor that was acquired.
Really
So
interesting.
fast forward 6 years, we outgrew them 10x,
Hmm.
and we almost acquired them.
Yeah, that's like plot twist.
Yeah.
So, how big was the team when you first started, and how big was it when you actually sold to Medias?
So that's a good one. Most entrepreneurs start alone. They don't hire; they try to prove the product, etc. My previous experiences taught me that I need to hire to build something big. Meaning, some people are more efficient being part of a team. I am that kind of people. Meaning that when you're working alone, you have so much distractions, and you need some level of stability. And so for me, hiring day one was a decision I made at some point, saying my next venture I will hire. So I hired 4 people in Tunis day
Hmm.
one, and that's how we started the business. And when we sold, we were around 200, 110 in Tunis, and around 90 between Europe and also spread. Like we had some 20, 30 people full remote in multiple regions, and then the
Mm,
rest was in France.
interesting. So we're gonna come back to the Expensya story and definitely to the acquisition story. But can you tell me a bit about how Thundercode started and where the idea came from?
Sure. So again, it came from a deep pain, to be honest, and what we believe is a good timing. The future will tell us. So when we did Expensya and when it grew with Jihad, we promised to not do another startup. Because honestly, it's
Mm,
really hard, especially doing it from the region. And also, we made enough money. I mean, the definition of enough, it depends on every person. We are pretty simple guys, Jed and I, and so we believe we made enough money. So we're not after money for the next venture. And it was really hard, and we wanted to focus on family and all of that. But I think we are entrepreneurs deep down, so something could pull us into doing something new, and that happened. What happened is that through our venture, when we sat with Jihad and thought, okay, what are the things we regret through Expensya? What are the things we wish we've done better? And to be honest, the thing we wish we've done better was quality assurance. And it's not that Expensya
mm,
was low quality; it's not the case. It's just that releasing new features was super slow compared to when we started. Every new feature became much slower, and it became slower because we had enterprise customers, like we had companies that have 100,000 employees that are in uh, considered defense sector or things like that. These are very resistant to any change in the product that you have, and they're not self-hosting. It's full SaaS, and so our customers made us slow because they're risk averse. We
mm.
made our quality assurance processes super slow, and so it was more than 50% of the time was spent testing instead of
Wow.
releasing. We operate in 60 countries, so every feature you build, and you make sure it works in these 60 countries. And we have not automated enough. We are not testing enough. It became a big part of our budget. So we thought about it and we said, okay, if we did higher quality with lower cost, we would have succeeded even more. But we all accept that it's a pain that you have to live with. You have 2 ways to test: whether you put humans in front of the product and it's high quality
Hmm.
testing, but it just doesn't scale. You can't have humans test everything everywhere, or you write automation code.
Hmm.
And we have written quite a lot. So we have almost a million line of test code in Expense. I don't know if you realize a million line of only test code because of the complexity of the product. And so, and everyone accepts that these are the only 2 options. But generative AI reopens that conversation. You see what I mean? Like a conversation that is
Mm.
closed for now 20 years, where you only have 2 options and you mix the two. Now we could start to think, okay, wait, if agents can behave like humans, then you could scale the human testing. You see what I mean? You could
Mm.
scale the manual testing. And that's how it started. We were like, okay, maybe this is the biggest problem we had through our journey at Microsoft, Expensya, etc. That maybe now the door is starting to open of we can actually crack it. And so yeah, we thought about it. We had a few meetings. We built a prototype, and we were like, okay, then let's do that. And then we talked to people around us. They got super excited. We did a survey of around 100 CEOs, CPOs, CTOs, and they all confirmed that they would love to have something like that in the market. And
Hmm.
so, as I told you, we built a prototype. We saw that we have new competitors coming out every week, which is actually a validation. Because when you have a smart idea,
Yep.
there's 1,000 people that have it at the same time. Because there is 1,000 people that see the same pain, see the same technology, reach the same conclusion.
Exactly.
So seeing other actors starting is a strong validation. And now the game is a natural selection game. Is how fast you go and
Hmm.
how fast you scale. And we believe we can eat them.
Apex predator. So, all right. So you decide to start. You mentioned something that I just can't get out of my mind, which is starting startups is always hard, especially in the region. Why is it especially hard in the region? I mean, before I just continue with the rest of our
Well,
Thunder Code story.
every ecosystem has its own challenges, but I think our local ecosystems have a unique set of challenges that impact startups, and I'll tell you how we dodge some of them with Jihad. So it's an ecosystem where you have less investment, especially seed investment and pre-seed, and so that gives you less weapons as you're scaling. Because less
Hmm.
early investment, that means you take less risks, you experiment less, you hire less top talent, and you have less to market your product early on. So that's
Hmm.
one. Second is you have a lack of top talent, meaning especially highly experienced, meaning in the region you find a lot of junior, super talented engineers. Then you have a high level of immigration, and so your top talent leaves. And
Yep.
especially in Europe and especially in France, if you look at top tech companies, you'll be surprised how much every other CIO and every other CTO is Tunisian, or Moroccan,
Yep.
or
Yep.
and so that deprives your region from the top talent you need at some point to scale.
Indeed.
And third is sometimes you have some local regulations that make it harder to scale. Okay, and so these for me are the some of the unique issues that you have in the ecosystem. And the way we dodge them with Jihad, especially in the new venture, is
Hmm.
that first we incorporate in different regions. Okay, in Expensya it took us 3 years to do it. Now we do it day one. We know that you should incorporate in multiple regions. So we have an office in Tunis and we have an office in Paris. From Paris, you can tap into a larger talent pool, especially if you accept to be full remote. Second is we sold a company so we can bootstrap. And so from day one, we invested into having the right talent and the right operations. We raise globally. In Expensya, we tried too much to raise locally, and it was a bad idea. We lost time. Now we raise globally, and we accept that yes, we want to have the highest impact, but the best way to have impact is to succeed. So let's, you know, uh, do everything we can to succeed while keeping our
Hmm.
values, obviously, and that will have the highest impact.
Wonderful. So, I mean, it's only been 8 months since you officially launched Thunder Code, so the story is still being written. But where are you now in the company story?
It's even less. It's even 7. So where we are, it's obviously the fastest we have ever done. Because we're trying to reuse everything we learned the hard way. So where are we at? I think we have the right team now. We have finished hiring the top talent that we need, so we are around 25 people, and we have the full team from R&D to AI research to having a great CRO coming from Microsoft to like we think we have the right team. We have a product that is selling, so we have a handful of customers, and we have tens of ongoing trials for enterprise. So of course, enterprise sales cycles are like a year. So we are in the middle of the enterprise cycle, but we have already SMB customers, like software providers that are buying our product,
Hmm.
using it, and liking it. And we have an exciting roadmap toward unicorn, whether it's product roadmap, sales roadmap, marketing roadmap. So we believe there is a path. Of course, as an entrepreneur, you don't control everything. I think people lie to themselves when they think they control everything. You control less than half, your future. But at least we have a plan we believe in that will take us to unicorn. We have raised 9 million, which is one of the biggest pre-seed, in the region and
Indeed.
in the testing ecosystem. If you look at test startups, AI test startups, I think we are in the top three in terms of fundraising, despite being in Tunis. So I would say that's where we are in the company. And now we need to transform that, meaning we need to quickly get in multi-million dollar ARR. We need to close enterprise customers that are currently in trials with us,
Hmm.
and we need to also prove that you can build an AI first company from the region. But I call it an AI first company.
Cool.
It's not that just that we are selling an AI product. That's the obvious part. The thing that we want to succeed at with Jihad is making our company run fully on AI.
Right.
For example, our customer support is fully AI. We made sure we would never hire in customer support. The future will tell us if it's true or not. We look at
Mm.
sales and we say, okay, how can we put as much AI as we can in sales, etc., etc., etc.
Interesting. And of course, for expenses, I know what you're using. Uh,
Absolutely.
all right. So, what are the things that you did with Expensya? Speaking of expenses, that you decided to totally avoid with Thundercode.
Yeah, I think it's being too local. I think it's one of the things. Meaning, I think we were seeing the world a bit wrong when we started Expensya.
Mm.
We want to have impact. That's the highest motivation. Of course, making money. Everyone is happy making money. I'm not going to tell you, I'm some communist that doesn't want to make money. I'm happy making money, but that's not my number one priority. And
Mm.
so, as we were trying to maximize impact, we thought we need to make a 100% Tunisian startup with 100% Tunisian funds. And you see what I mean? Like, we were obsessed with that, and
Mm.
that's completely wrong. And we pivoted from that, and we're happy we pivoted from that. So that's something we're not going to try to do. We are a global startup from day one that
Mm.
happens to be deeply rooted in Tunisia, with a lot of Tunisian investors, etc., but not something exclusive that we're no longer obsessed with
Yeah.
it. Second is we didn't have enough cash when we started Expensya, and so we tried to do everything and hire only out of college people that we were training, and very mindful of every dollar that we are spending. With Thundercode, what we're saying is that we raise the level of ambition while staying hungry, and both can go together, meaning you can
Mm.
throw money on problems if they allow you to go faster, and we're happy to do it, money that we didn't have with Expensia. But we negotiate everything, we make sure we get a good deal on everything, you see what I mean, and both are not
Yeah.
opposed, right?
Yeah. They're not.
So yeah, being spending too little is something we don't want to do, that we did in Expensia.
Mm.
And last, it goes also with spending too little, is we try to do too many things as a company. And I think in build versus buy is much better when you start. So we try to buy every piece of software that we can, we try to license as much as we can, scale, and then as you scale, you can decide to do things for higher margin internally
Mm.
instead of trying to do it from.
Right. S- So it seems you're like optimizing for speed in a great sense rather
Exactly.
than, yeah, expense. And
Yeah.
are there any like best practices from Expensia from that you are still moving forward with?
Yes. So one is sharing capital. Sharing capital with your employees is key. And it's not common enough in the region. It is growing, but 10 years ago it wasn't common
Yeah.
enough. So sharing capital with the employees, making sure that if this thing succeeds, your top talent needs to make life changing money. Okay, of course, there won't be billionaires, and that we won't be billionaires either if we do unicorn, because you did dilute yourself. But
Yeah.
for me, key is people need to make multiple millions if the venture succeeds, and so we try to structure the capital that way. So that's something we want to do. Something else we want to do is we want to have fun. I think overall we had fun doing Expensive, to be honest, and we did some crazy stuff that, looking back, we want to do again or bigger. Like, I remember, for example, we wanted to do an offsite and we had the tradition we do every year an offsite with Expensya, regardless of the company size. We all fly somewhere and do a 5-day offsite, mix of work and having fun. And there was an offsite in Malta, and one of the flights got cancelled. So we rented an A320. So we chartered an A320 and we took the whole employees, and so we had to we rented it, we found a crew, and
Nice.
and we did the trip. And these are memories that are deep rooted in everyone's mind. We did also a Nile cruise. So we went to Egypt and we did
Hmm.
a 5-day cruise on the Nile.
Nice.
And some people got COVID, which is
Oh,
not a great experience. But for sure, you do remember when you have a few COVID cases on a
yeah.
on a
On a
boat.
boat.
Everyone is living.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, long story short, having fun is something that we want to keep.
yeah.
You asked me about things I would do differently. One thing that I really regret in Expensya is that we have burned a few people. Burned in meaning burnout. And I think because
Mm,
I think we didn't understand how burnout works, and we didn't understand how startups scale. And actually, the core reason why we had a few burnouts is that when you hire people and you're a younger startup, you put them in a position where the company will outgrow them at some point. It even outgrows
mhm.
the founders, right? And
Yep.
so, as an example, let's say you hire a CRO, and so that your CRO is global, right? But in reality, your CRO is managing a 50,000 euros and one sales, right? And so, as the company scales, people do grow, and it's an amazing experience to see people grow. But at some point, it's still growth if that CRO becomes VP of Europe, right?
Yep.
Because maybe in Europe now you have 20 sales and 10 million budget, right? But if you don't have that conversation very early, when you reach that point, you only have two bad options, right? You let the person try to stay the global CRO, but then they burn out because the company has outgrew them, or you try to hire someone more senior to help them, but then they see it as a failure. You
Yep.
see my point? So now
Yes.
I do it at the beginning. When I hire people, I say, look, there is a high probability that the company would outgrow every one of us. So today you're CRO global, but maybe tomorrow you will be Europe because we need someone more senior in North America. Or do you see what I mean? And so that's something that I'm committed to do deeply differently, because burning people out is something that stays on your conscience.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine the people who built the company with you.
Yes, exactly. And then they go, they're sick for 6 months or something like that. And it's really hard to see people battling with burnout, because it's
Absolutely.
it's a mental issue, and
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Okay. So let me talk about Thundercode again, in the sense that, I mean, whenever someone builds an AI these days, they're met with a mixture of enthusiasm and skepticism at the same time. So, enthusiasm because of the potential of AI and all that, and skepticism because people wonder if you can add value beyond the models. Whether the next version of GPT-6 now will take over from you most of the work and stuff like that. So, I mean, how do you think through that, and what do you tell people about this?
Well, I think it's a fake problem. Meaning, yes, we are reselling tokens. That's for sure. But didn't SaaS companies, when they started, were just reselling some network access? Meaning,
Yep.
building a
Like,
thin layer on
SaaS
top of
companies are
infrastructure.
reselling cloud.
Yeah, you're reselling cloud, or yes, exactly. Now, when you run on Azure or on GCP, aren't you just reselling? Aren't you just building a thin layer on top of cloud? And obviously, you are,
Yeah.
but that thin layer still contains a lot of expertise. Okay, and so I think there is one blog post that I think everyone should read, is when Anthropic shut down Windsurf. Remember,
Hmm. Yeah.
Windsurf is based on Claude, and Claude gave them 7-day notice, and they shut them
Yeah.
down. They wrote a blog post about who are we as Windsurf, and that blog post really resonated with us, because that's exactly how we see ourselves. So we are not just token resellers; we are
Mm.
test experts. Okay, so we bring test expertise. I'll give you one example. What does that mean? So we are not so in the heart of Thunder, you have what we call personas. Personas are agents that run your tests. Okay, so for example, you build a test scenario that says go here, log in, do this, do that, and verify that you get this. Okay, so that's typically how a test is structured. When you want to run it, you can choose different personas, and these personas come with their own history and their own best practices. So if you run that scenario with the QA will make sure the scenario works as you have stated it. But if you run it with an accessibility expert, you basically get the equivalent of a human that has disabilities, that has,
Yeah.
that is blind, that goes through your website. And it is impressive to see how much your website is not accessible, and you wouldn't have done it another way. Or you have
Yes.
UX expert will go through your scenario and give you valuable subtle feedback on your website. And
Exactly.
so of course these are tokens back and forth with whatever LLM we use, and we've changed multiple times. But that deep understanding of how testing should work is what we bring. So that's one. The second
Mm,
is like any SaaS, it's the workflows. The fact that we thought about, okay, how testing works, how you build a test plan, and
mm,
then you build test cases, you run them, and then you need to connect to Jira to create issues, and then you need to, and so that mechanic is, we believe OpenAI won't get
mm.
into it. We believe and we hope that OpenAI and similar won't get into it. But we think that 1 year from now, for us, it's irrelevant if OpenAI gets into it because we will be enough ahead. So that's how we see the problem. Now, if OpenAI tomorrow decides to launch a testing engine, then yes, it's going to be a challenge to us. But we don't believe they will, and we believe that 1 year from now it's irrelevant. It's too much of a high expertise niche.
Yeah. Cool. And actually, I mean, when I look like at the bigger market, I mean, Cursor as an IDE is $4 billion run rate, and probably half of that is going to Anthropic, and Anthropic is actually also has the Claude Code, which is a very strong competitor, so to speak, and they're both coexisting very well, and Cursor is growing incredibly well, and so is Claude Code, and it's not even with the existence of Cloud Code, Cursor is thriving, so to speak.
Of course, and you see it in the cloud. I think the closest example is the cloud. Like you have a lot of people building
Yes.
productivity products on Azure, while Microsoft is selling Microsoft Office side by side. It's
Yep. So currently, you're still in the product development phase. So I mean, you need to iterate very quickly based on the feedback from your customers and be very close to the customer. Is there a system you're using, a system that to obtain and deal with this feedback, and or a workflow, or is there a process you guys are doing, and how are you involved as a founder in that?
so yeah. I think I don't know if we use a formal framework, or maybe we should know about these and use a formal framework. But the way we deal with it is that we have a combination of highly instrumented product. Okay, so we have a ton of data of what's happening in the product and a ton of AI interpreting that data so that we get patterns, so that we understand how people use it, and that we proactively know when there is an issue. So there is that thing. But I think that telemetry and OKRs and metrics and all of that we are all obsessed with in the past few decades doesn't replace reaching out to a customer. Okay, reaching out directly, or reaching out through a third party that can collect more honest feedback than you can. And so the way we get involved is that we always ask feedback at every stage. We Today at our size we meet with every customer. So one of the first hires I've made is customer success before even having a CRO. And the customer success meets with everyone, collects feedback. That feedback is transcribed. We of course use note takers and all of that. These are all processed automatically, and we get that feedback and we make sure that we act on that feedback. And then when we do product grooming that we do every week, okay, because you need to iterate
Hmm.
quickly. So every week we sit and we prioritize based on that feedback to make sure that we move the needle every week for these customers.
Mm.
And then at the end, there is a metric that matters is revenue. Is the conversion rates, the revenue you have is also a strong indication of how much value you bring to your customers.
Yep.
And so I think it's the combination of the three. So focused on revenue, a lot of telemetry, but we are lucky we can meet with every customer at this stage, and we should continue to do it as long as long as we can.
And Thundercode is inherently a global product. So, I mean, what's your go-to-market strategy? Is it like product-led growth, or is it enterprise sales?
So I think it's always dangerous to cite someone else, but I would cite one product that I like from a go-to-market motion is Figma. Okay,
Mhm.
and I say Figma because I believe that the kind of product that we're building is a product that can fully be sold self-serve. Okay, with a product-led growth motion, you can sell to any team in any company. You don't need to go through an enterprise motion to sell to the whole company. But the real enterprise value will come from being able to sign the whole company. Okay, so Figma does that. DocuSign does that. You can go and buy DocuSign you
Exactly.
alone, and then if 10 people buy DocuSign in your org, DocuSign will send you sales. Say, hey, you have these 10 people
Exactly.
buying the product. What if we have an enterprise deal? And so we're following that exact same strategy. Now, even if the product is global, I think that the motion needs to be local. Selling to North American companies is not the same as selling to European companies. And so we are creating two separate motions, one for Europe, Middle East, Africa, and one for North America. And product-led growth with an ability to go upsell to the whole organization.
Yeah. But how is it different selling like a test product to North America versus Europe? I mean, at the end of the day, they're software developers who are running tests, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It's actually much closer than selling CFO products like in Expensya. It is much more global by design, but still you don't have the same competitive space. Okay,
Mm.
meaning these companies, if they look at you and look at competitors, they won't look at the same competitors. So you sometimes have a
Right.
different angle. They don't have the same tools in their ecosystem. Although of course, GitHub is dominant and things like that, but you still have some variations. And finally, you have a lot of security, privacy conversations where the framework is slightly different between Europe and North America. And last thing that maybe I should not say, but North American companies are less price sensitive, and so you can easily end up selling at different prices for enterprise. Self-serve, everyone gets the same price. It's public. But for enterprise, I should probably not say it, but North American customers often get a higher price. But that doesn't mean that we're scamming them. They also have different expectations
Yeah. Probably more
that we
demanding.
yes, they're more demanding. They're more demanding, and they expect more packaging. They expect that customer success is always free. In Europe, customer success can be billed often for enterprise. It's a different space that if you think you're going to go after it in the same motion, you have some friction.
It's not that simple. Never is.
It's not that, but it is definitely much easier than Expensya because Expensya, whenever you talk finance, it's very local. Here, it's much less local for sure.
Yeah. Cool. It's. I wonder, and please, like, don't take this as like negative feedback. But I wonder if you're like you overcorrected with Thundercode, because it feels to me that you have a very big team for how early you are, and a CRO and all these things already. And I understand that you were very constrained with Expensia, and so you don't want to repeat the same constraints. But at the same time, I'm
Yes.
looking at companies, that have reached very high run rates with 30 employees or 40 employees in the latest Gen AI boom, so to speak. And I'm wondering if you overcorrected, if this is maybe overdoing it for how early you are in the cycle.
Well, there is a little bit of that, but there is also a little bit of uh, numbers. you can make numbers say what you want them to say. And so I looked at these numbers for a lot of companies, and actually we don't count the same way. So if I count like these companies that you're citing, we are 12 because because of the definition of FTE. Okay, so the definition of FTE
Mm.
is you would remove the interns and you would remove, the contractors, and you would remove. So when I say we are 25, I take into account everyone. We have 25 heads, including the part timers and the interns, and because these are the people I need to manage from a HR perspective and all that. But
Yep.
if you were to compare apples to apples, we are 12, which is still relatively high for a company at our size. The reason we are
Mm.
this big is I think there are things where we don't need to experiment. There are things that we know how it's going to look like. And the market potential is so massive that we don't want to lose any minute going after it. And
Right.
and we need to parallelize many things. You see what I mean? And so that's what we're going after. And I believe we are not enough to go after this huge opportunity. So yeah, that's my take on it. So we are slightly bigger, maybe overcorrecting. You're right, but if you compare to Replit and all these guys, we are 12.
Yep. Okay. And does the team work remotely, or is everyone more or less co-located in Tunisia?
No, we are. So our policy is full remote ish.
Okay.
So we can hire anyone anywhere as long as it
Hmm.
works and it's the right talent and the time zone difference is not too big. But then naturally you have clusters that do appear, right? You have groups of people. And so we have more people in Tunis and Paris than anywhere else. And so in Tunis and Paris, we do have offices where people can show up as often as they want, so that we can have that energy. So in France, we are in Station F, the big accelerator, because we were incubated by Microsoft for 3 months, and now we continued in Station F. And in Tunis, we have an office here downtown that people can go to. And other than that, we have people in multiple cities in Europe, in Belgium.
Wonderful. All right. So I heard you say somewhere that you apply Amazon's leadership principles. Do you apply like every single one? Did you take them kind of copy paste the same? You believe in every single one the same, or is there part of it?
Actually, we kept most of it. We removed a few because the exercise we did is we translated them, not in languages, but in
Mm,
in trying to use our own words for each of these. And you realize that there is a couple that culturally can be misunderstood, and
mm,
so we drop them. Like for example, there is one is says leaders are often right or right all the time. I don't remember the exact wording.
yeah,
And the problem with that is that it could be understood as don't challenge your leader. You see what I mean?
yeah,
When
yeah.
the core of that leadership principle is to say, don't talk when you don't know.
Exactly. You make the effort to be right, basically.
Yeah, as a leader, you have to do your homework. You have to do your homework. You need to know your numbers. You need, as a leader, you need
Exactly.
to when you speak, it needs to be very accurate. But it could be misunderstood. And so what we did is we took the Amazon leadership principles, we turned them into the Expensya leadership principles, and we have grouped a few, we have removed a couple, and so we grouped them into 5 leadership principles, and we review employees every 6 months on these. We have like a performance review that happens every 6 months in Expensya that we are now bringing into Thunder soon, I hope, where we actually review people and rate people on these, and we give them actionable feedback on these.
Nice.
And so every team has to translate these into their own mission. And yes, we take these almost religiously. And I think that it's key to treat everyone as a potential leader, as a leader, and align everyone to what a leader means.
Wonderful. So, I guess you and your co-founder, you were born in Tunis, right, Karim?
Yes, we were both born in Tunis, and we met at university in Toulouse in France. So that's how we met the first time, and
Okay.
then we met again at Microsoft. We ended up in the same team, just out of luck. We ended up in the same team, and that's when we had a chance to work together.
Interesting. So you've known each other. How do you see yourself? I mean, are you, you obviously set up the company in Paris. So, I mean, are you a Tunisian founder based in France, or are you a French founder of Tunisian origin? How do you think about this identity
Yeah,
issue?
it's hard to, identity is a complex thing. And by the way, I recommend an amazing book from Amin Malouf, a Lebanese writer, that was translated
Hmm.
in many languages. But Amin Malouf has a book called Identities, I think in English. In French is Les Identités Meurtrières, and it's a very interesting essay on what does an identity mean and what identity do you express. So identity is a complex thing. Me personally, I identify myself as a nerd who is from a Tunisian origin, who is Tunisian, not from Tunisian origin. I am Tunisian, meaning I live most of my time in Tunis, where I try to, and I like Tunisian history and culture and all of that. But I'm a citizen of the world because of I grew up in India, in Nigeria, in Mauritania. I studied in France and Canada. I worked in the US. I believe that the world is smaller than we make it look like, and I have also French citizenship, and I pay my taxes. I pay a lot of taxes in France. So it's a complex beast. And about the book I just recommended, if I over summarize it, the thesis that Amin Malouf is building is that as human beings, we express the most different identity we have. You see what I mean? Like in Tunisia, I would never say
Hmm.
I'm Tunisian. No one cares, right?
Right.
My most different identity is that I'm an entrepreneur. That's what sets me apart from the group. I would never say, my parents are Muslim or whatever, because no one cares. When you see North Africans in Europe, they tend to be much more religious than North Africans in Tunis because that's the most different identity. You see what I mean? As human
Mm.
beings, we always express. When French go to Silicon Valley, they are French first before anything else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it's an interesting thesis that I recommend people read it.
Interesting. And I mean, we've all been in this region kind of struggling recently with this idea of world citizenship, because I mean, that's, I think many people in the entrepreneurial ecosystem are thinking about that. But at the same time, what's happening with Gaza, and how the West reacted, and or didn't react, so to speak, was revealing in ways, or maybe shocking, and we're all maybe reconfiguring or reorienting ourselves and who we are and what we're doing and stuff like that. Has that touched you or had any effect on you in any way?
Yes, it's actually touched, I think, almost everyone in the region and even beyond. In Europe, it's also something that is starting to build up, where it shatters a lot of everyone's beliefs. And I think there is a series of things, like what is happening in Ukraine that is very horrible, and how the world reacted very strongly, very fast. What is happening in Gaza, and regardless of politics and who is responsible and who owns the land, and is the Bible a good a source of land ownership or anything like that, we can put all of that on the side. It's really about how do you rank human beings, and should we rank human beings? You see what I mean? And should we, like I remember when Russia invaded Ukraine, that is something that really struck me. It was on French television, and there was a journalist saying how shocked he was. And the sentence he said is that this is not some war in some remote Middle Eastern region or Afghanistan. This is white kids with blue eyes. And that sentence
Wow.
really shocked me. It doesn't mean that's everyone's opinion. That's not the case. But
Of course.
feeling okay to say that on TV is shocking. For on all
Yes.
ages, you had people with, I would say, the wrong opinions or extreme opinions, but they don't get as much a chance to say it globally. And that sentence
Yeah. Yeah.
really shocked me because we're ranking human beings, and I believe that a Ukrainian kid or a French kid or Palestinian kid have the same rights as my kid, who is half French, half Tunisian. So
Absolutely.
that really shocked a lot of people, and I think it's starting to shift how people invest the money and how they want to do business, and I think that's lose lose for everyone. The example I like to give around me when I talk to friends is local law is very useful. Like when I take a cab, it doesn't cross my mind that I could, fight with the cab to not pay, right? It wouldn't
Mm.
ever cross my mind that I'm going to shoot at the cab driver just to get to not pay. And that's because the law applies to everyone, and we are all educated in the law, other than the values. But let's just talk about the law, and the law is very useful to everyone. And so, yes, of course, in ages, some people with power have worked around the law, but that's a minority, and we all believe the law is good for everyone. It would be a horrible world if we stop believing that the law applies to everyone, right? If it becomes the strongest, and if I have a weapon, I don't pay the taxi, it's just a crazy world. And so I think it's very, very dangerous for some people to build the opinion that international law is useless. It is not perfect. It has issues. International law always applied differently if you are one of the big countries, if you're Russia or China or the US, and we all grew up with that. But I think this time we're crossing a threshold where we are starting to hear a lot of people believing that we can dismantle international law because it's no longer convenient. And I think
Yep.
that it's very dangerous because you don't know who's the strongest 20 years from now,
Yep.
and I think the law protects everyone, and that is
Exactly.
something that keeps me awake, to be honest. Because as an entrepreneur, you're building a business. By building your business, you rely on a set of rules that apply to everyone, right? I'm relying on the fact that no one would seize my business unless I'm a criminal, but no one would seize it just for fun. And it can seem idiotic, but I'm born in Tunisia in a dictatorship. And I never thought I'm going to go back to Tunisia, do a business, because people could seize your business. You see what I mean? Because you're in the wrong country.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason I did Expensya, one of the reasons I did Expensya is that I built the belief that my business is protected because Tunisia evolved. You see what I mean? And so
Yep.
I've grown up in areas and countries and situations where not believing the law protects everyone is a lose lose for everyone, especially for
Exactly.
entrepreneurs who want to take risk and
Yep.
want to take. So sorry, it's a long answer, but I want to say is that entrepreneurs are in the forefront, I think, of innovation in general. We should think and act as much as we can to protect the system we're in because we're thriving thanks to that system. Okay. And part of that system is international law and many other things like free trade and things like that. But international law is at the heart of what is needed for innovation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it makes you kind of think differently when you're making decisions about location and focus and all these things. But
Yes, it makes you a bit nervous. Makes you a bit nervous. Is like, is it the right decision? Will borders suddenly go up?
yep.
Even without thinking about Gaza specifically, but even if you look at Europe to North America, now you have tariffs. Tariffs are on goods. So I'm lucky. I'm fully digital. But what if we have
Yep.
tariffs on digital? What if we have strong borders where you can no longer sell AI or buy AI from another country? What happens
Exactly.
if you suddenly feel unsafe for your kids because they have the wrong color or the wrong religion? These are questions that everyone hoped that we no longer have to ask them, and it kind of feels that we now have to ask them again.
Yeah. Or just fix the problem that's making this happen.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
but that's the thing is I feel that is more push towards this is the end of international law. Let's accept it than
Mm.
let's save international law.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Let's hope the good side wins, so to speak. Um, so going back to more positive stuff, and to entrepreneurship at its core. What's I mean, a $9 million seed round. Wow, that's a big seed round, mashallah. And it was pre-revenue, I think. So, why did you decide
Yes.
to raise such a large amount? And can you tell us more about that?
So yeah, to be honest, we weren't looking at raising at that time because as I told you, we are ambitious but hungry. We'd like to stay hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and we like to think about every dollar. And so we were bootstrapping. We had enough personal cash to go through it. We were not burning a lot. You would be surprised how much we burned through the journey till now. Um, and so we were thinking we will raise in 2026 when we have enough revenue and proof of product market fit. Because remember, we are very optimistic, micro, very pessimistic, meaning we don't take product market fit as granted just because we have a great idea. So we wanted to prove it. But what happened is that a lot of inbound came in from investors we know and investors we like and investors that believe in what we are doing. And with everything happening in the world, we were like, okay, there is money, let's take it. Instead of maybe a year from now, who knows how the world looks like? Who knows what the barriers look like, the tariffs, all of that. Let's secure what we think we need to scale. And then so we
Mm-hmm.
took the money when it was.
So, I mean, the large size was actually offered from pushed, so to speak. The investors were looking to invest a large amount rather than.
Originally, when we said, okay, let's take the money, we said, okay, let's take 2 million. It will act
Mhm.
as a bridge when we reach product market fit the way we want, and then do a real round. But many investors wanted to invest. And so, we took the money, we raised the valuation because of course both go together, right? You
Yep.
don't want to end up at a very low percentage from the beginning. I personally think the valuation was too high for a pre-revenue, but that's how it happened, and we don't see that as
It's
a
great.
as a success. We don't think fundraising is a
Of
success.
course.
Success is product fit, is revenue, is so we laser focused on the next step.
Wonderful. So, and I mean, I totally see it as rational to, once you're offered a good investment, to kind of take it and keep the cash, and you don't have to spend it after all. At the same time, it influences your next round, right? Because once you raise at a certain valuation, then to be able to raise it the next round, maybe you need at least $100 million valuation. I don't know, what the valuation was for this round. So that would mean like at least maybe $10 million, maybe a little less of run rate to raise the next round. So it's a bit also of a risk in a sense. Do you feel comfortable with that risk? How did you balance it?
Yeah, I think we just didn't change that plan. Meaning, we had an idea of where we want to be, and
Mm-hmm.
we thought that we were going to do two rounds, maybe one in 2026, and then one much bigger in 2027 or 2028
Mm-hmm.
as we grow, and then yes, you will be these kind of numbers. But the only thing we did is that we pulled the money earlier, but we were very careful to not change how we think the following round will be. You see what I mean? We just pulled it earlier,
Yeah.
but you're right. When you raise at a high valuation, that means the next round needs to be even higher. But we took that into account. It didn't change our plans. You see what I mean? It just we raised that round that we thought we were going to do at 2026 much earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but we still have the same level of pressure for the following round that we had in our original business plan.
Okay. All right. So, okay, going back to the Expensya story, I'd like to talk about the acquisition. So, how did you decide you want to sell, and how did you go about with that decision?
Yeah, I think the market decided, meaning, um, you know, it,
Mm.
it, it's always important to see the whole market and where we are operating. If you look 20 years back, 25 years back, a CFO would buy an ERP, and the ERP does everything. Okay, it sucks at everything. That's my opinion, but it does everything.
Yep.
When
Yep.
I say it sucks at everything, opening up a new country is hard as a CFO. You need to re-implement your ERP in this new country. It's not collaborative. It's only back office. As a CFO, you use it, but your employees can't use it. And so you need to build Excel templates between you and your employees so that you can import the data. And I mean, it's a mess, but it does every function that you need it to do. With the arrival of SaaS, we've seen many highly specialized actors that only do one function in the company or two functions in the company, but they do it well. Like if you look at Expensya, it's collaborative. Your employees can use it. It's global, so you can implement new countries in half a day instead of months of project. It gets updated with new regulation. You don't have to worry about it as a CFO. It's magic for CFOs compared to the ERP. and that made the specialized actors actually win. Meaning, if you look at all the specialized guys in the market, it's bigger than the ERP market. If you sum all of them, of course,
Yep.
ERPs, each of them is big, but the sum of the specialized. But that created a real IT problem for the CFO. Now CFOs have like 30 apps in their ecosystem, and by the way, every C level has like 30 apps in the ecosystem, to be able to run the
Yep.
company. And so we're seeing pressure now from CFOs to get that fixed. And so we built the belief that the future is platforms. Okay, so it is staying highly specialized, but being part of a platform that makes implementing these solutions a no-brainer. Okay, because they're already interconnected, and that removes the IT problem. And I think there is one example in the market is Microsoft Office in another space.
Hmm.
If you think about it, between Word, Excel, Teams, all of these guys, it's a complete different product. They have nothing. It's a different workflow, but
Yep.
Microsoft got it used to buying it together, and they collaborate, and it just works. And so
Yep.
we arrived to the conclusion that the market wants platforms. And during that thinking, we started to have inbound of companies that want to acquire us. Okay, because again, if you have a smart idea, thousands of people have the same.
Yeah.
And so we arrived to the conclusion that if we want to do a platform, you can build, buy, or sell. Right? We started looking at build. We had options to raise 100, 150 million, buy other companies, merge it. Build, we didn't believe in it. We would be too slow to actually be a platform fast enough.
Mm.
And during that thinking, we had multiple inbounds, and we ended up picking this Medius company as our acquirer. So, we did the classic way. We hired a banker, and we put these different companies to competition, and Medius won.
Okay, so there was kind of a bidding process.
Yes, yes. So the market made us believe that we need to be a platform, and then we did a bidding
Yeah.
process. We had several potential buyers. We had some global banks. We had a well-known neobank. We had
Yeah.
US-based competitors, different potential buyers, and at the end,
Nice.
this company won because we believed that they had the best product and the best story and the best funded.
And so the valuation, was it like decided by the bankers, or was it a negotiation between you and Medius?
It was a negotiation. It was like a bidding system. So we made every potential
Mm.
buyer bid. We looked at the different options, how much cash, how much stocks, and then we pushed for a higher offer. And then
Hmm.
we at some point we found the right number and we agreed on it.
Got it. I have so many questions and so little time left, so I'm gonna have to really focus. But there are some things that were interesting for me, which is like you co-founded Expensya with Jihad, and now you're working on the second one together. So, what do you think has made you effective as a team, both of you?
It's trust.
Mm.
I've seen so many ventures that break because you have trust issues between founders. You have communication issues. I think with Jihad, we went through enough hardship. Our level of trust is just 100%. And that is so comfortable.
So, I mean, are there any systems or best practices you think should be set up between co-founders?
Yeah, I think early on they need to align on what is the value system they have. So we need to agree on why we're doing this venture and what's the values, and we need to have a very, very, very honest conversation. To tell you a story, in Expensive we were supposed to be three, but we broke up with the third first week because I pushed really hard to align our values, and we agreed that we don't have the same objectives.
Interesting.
Then I think meeting very often, one on one. So we try to do at least weekly. Then also when things don't go well, because these things do happen when you start to have tension and all of that, is two
Absolutely.
things I recommend. One is to have a very strict split between pro and personal. We are friends, and this is work, and we do it uh, even through apps. Like we use Teams for work, and we use WhatsApp outside, and we never mix. I'll try to
Mm.
never send anything about work on WhatsApp and anything about personal and Teams. And so you create frameworks where it's obvious that it's separate,
Mm.
and then you can have some counsel. Like we had times where we hired a coach that worked with us a few months to resolve some communication issues. And because Jihad and I, we are very different as a personality, almost opposite. But we have a high level of trust and we work well together. And I think that matters.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, opposites are complementary, so it's a good thing. And so, what can co-founders like disagree on, and what must they agree on?
So I think they need to agree on leadership principles and how to resolve conflicts, and they need to
Hmm.
agree on roles. It's hard to agree on roles, but it's important to agree. Meaning, Jere is CTO, I am CEO. He needs to challenge me every day, and I need to challenge him every day. We can disagree, but once we decide, we have our own areas of responsibility. And if we decide, we need to be able to disagree and commit. Meaning,
Hmm.
if Jihad makes some technical decisions that I disagree with, if we had enough time to discuss it, if I wasn't able to convince him, and then he made that decision, I need to align with him. Okay, instead of continuously telling him like I disagree. And same
Yeah.
thing, like if we disagree on some strategic decisions, we talk it through. But at the end, I'm the CEO. I have to make my decisions, and so that's also important. And it's part of the leadership principle framework. And we have to agree on how do we want to treat employees. Okay,
Mm.
you have a full spectrum of how do you treat employees. We
Right.
need to agree on how do we treat them.
The culture.
Uh, Culture, yes. And the things they can disagree on is everything in between, right? They can disagree on how fast do we go, how much risk do we take, what is the roadmap, where do we open offices, should we hire that person? I mean, there's so many opportunities of the disagreement, but at the end, we need to agree on how do we solve disagreement.
Yep. Cool. And so, I mean, you decided to base both your startups in Paris. So, while you were working on your second one, like Thundercode, did you consider moving to one of the Gulf hubs like Dubai or Riyadh, or with less taxes and
Yes,
all these benefits?
yes, we did consider it definitely. We even went to Qatar, to the Web Summit Qatar, thinking, okay, what if we do it differently this time? And we thought about it very deeply. And to be honest, we thought about it more from a geopolitical standpoint than anything else, just to say, we want to do it differently. That's it.
Mm.
We didn't do it differently for now because of speed. It's
Mm.
if you want to go fast, you do what you know, and
Yep.
then you innovate. And so because of speed, we did Tunis and Paris. But we still somewhere in our minds to do it maybe in Qatar or elsewhere. The future will tell us.
Interesting. And what are the areas you think startups from the Arab region can shine in?
Um, you mean specific locations? You mean ecosystems?
No, industries and things like that,
Industry.
verticals,
Industry.
types of
Yeah.
startups.
Yeah. I think it's a very good question. I think there are two types of verticals. There is the ones where the region has specific skills, like deeper skills. I think agriculture, agri-tech is something we should really look at.
Hmm.
I think health tech is something we should really look at. Of course, all the energy sector. That's obvious. The
Yep.
region has oil. The region has sun. Like Tunisia, when you have solar panels, which I have above my roof now, it's the cheapest
Hmm.
energy worldwide. It is
Yep.
literally the cheapest energy worldwide is Tunisian solar because of many factors. So I think
Mm.
energy is a key factor. So that's one way to see how to be successful is to focus on stuff that you have unfair advantage on. And the
Hmm.
second is, I think, things where you can build a hybrid company where you have people in the region and people in the markets. And I think
Hmm.
it's anything B2B, human intensive, services intensive, I think can be something that the region
Yeah.
can really shine.
Yeah. And global need, global
Yes,
market,
like
local delivery,
yes,
so to speak,
AI
or
for
regional delivery.
accounting, AI for HR, AI for
Yeah.
testing, things like that, where it's a global market, but you can compete with more grit and cheaper cost.
Wonderful. So if you could have a magic wand and change one thing in the regional ecosystem, what would it be?
Huh. I think it's how well integrated and stable the markets are. I think the region is too fragmented. Like as a Tunisian startup, the Tunisian market is ridiculous. If you're not into food or health, or
Mm.
transportation, the market is just ridiculously small. So you have to export. But Tunisia is
Yep.
not well integrated with Libya, with Algeria, with all of that. So that's one. It's poor integration. And the second is stability. I mean, if you look at Lebanon is unstable, Palestine is a
Mm.
disaster, Yemen is a disaster, Saudi Arabia and the Gulf are sometimes not in in perfect relationships. It's stability is something that if I could magically
Yep.
change it.
Hopefully, everyone's dream in the region. So I'll go into the quickfire questions so we can wind down. So, what's a book or books that you like to recommend to others?
Okay, so there is the Amin Malouf books, but that's more personal.
Mm-hmm.
I like how Amin Malouf talks about the region and the region's history, and I'm a history nerd.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a book that is maybe a bit too old now. It's called What Would Google Do?
Okay.
That I recommend because it's a mindset. It's the
Mm.
mindset of when you have a problem, think about the best solution. If you had infinite resources, what is the best solution?
Mm.
And then degrade from there instead of thinking small. You know what I mean? And it changes how you do business. Uh, and then there is a book about us as humans called The Human Bug. If I translate from French, I don't know the exact name in English. I'll send it to you. In French, it's called Le Bug Humain, and it's
Uh-huh.
about how, as a species, why as a species we self-destruct, and why as a species we go after always more intense, always
Yep.
and it's not just a pessimistic book. It's really about our genetics, how we act as a group, and what can we do to limit
Right.
these impacts. And it is really shaping how I'm trying to behave as a human being.
Interesting. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one before. So, and how do you unwind and relax?
That's a yeah. I think I don't relax enough. I should
Mm-hmm.
make a better routine, and that's one of my objectives now. Is build better routines. I um, I like physics, science. I like to watch videos about physics, science, etc. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
It really frees your mind and educates you. And so my wife always jokes about it. Says Karim watches videos on quantum mechanics when he wants to forget work. I like to travel a lot. Like traveling is really a bug I have, although it's not
Mm-hmm.
as sustainable as I want it to be. And third is reading history books. I like history, not as milestones and dates and that. I like to history as how it's lived through human beings and how human beings live through it. And so again, I like Amin Malouf, and one of them is Crusades as seen by the Arabs, if you know that book.
Yeah.
And I really love it because it's not the Crusades history. It's really how individuals through the region lived through Crusaders invading the region.
Mm. Interesting. And who do you think we should have as a guest on the podcast or guests?
Oh, um, I think you have InstaDeep's founder, Karim Bagir. I don't know if he was in the podcast, but I think
No, no, he hasn't yet, but
it's the
I'd love to
biggest
have
exit
him.
from Tunisia. It's one of the
Yes,
biggest in the
indeed, of
region,
course.
and we are quite different as people, but we share the same level of ambition for the region. And
Nice.
what I like in Dream is that he's the kind of dreamer that believes we can change the region. You know, I sometimes have doubts. He doesn't. You
Mm.
know, and he's working actively to see how he can change the region, and that I really
Nice.
like. Um, then I think having what I don't like about success stories is that success stories are oversimplified.
Mm.
So, for example, I hate to read books about Apple or Bill Gates, or because I think they skip the human part of it, and it becomes just a story of a series of smart decisions and a series of hard work. And I believe that we should bring normal entrepreneurs that go through normal experiences, because you can learn from it. And I'll add a last book. There is a book that is exactly that. It's called Fire Someone Today,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about a tech entrepreneur and every problem they had through the journey. And there are normal entrepreneurs that build normal companies, and each chapter is a lesson. It's called Fire Someone Today.
Interesting. An interesting name for the book as well.
Yeah, and it
So,
has nothing to do with firing people. It's a marketing thing that it's called that way.
yeah, they're catchy, definitely. So, I like to close the podcast on a note of gratitude. So, what is a gift someone has given you that has had a large effect on you?
Oh, I had many actually, but a gift that had an impact on me. I think. Let me think to choose one. Huh? I'll okay. I'll give one that is slightly different because it's a corporate gift. You know how startups and corporations can have a tough relationship, right? Um, and in Expensya, we had as our largest customer Crédit Agricole. It's a large union of banks. Okay, so it's 40 regional banks. And COVID hit. I was confined in Paris, and it was a shitty time to be in. When you're doing business travel, and your revenue drops 85%. It is bad.
Exactly.
And so I got, yeah, it feels, you're wondering what you're doing in your life. And so I got a call from Crédit Agricole, from someone from Crédit Agricole that I worked with, and he asked me, how is the business doing? And my first reaction was, he's trying to find a plan B if we go south, right? Because we are an IT product they have, and they need to keep it running. And so I
Mm.
told him transparently where we're at, and he said, "You know what? I have an idea. I will help you get an upfront 1 year payment from every one of the 40 banks." And so he spent three
Wow.
weeks calling every regional bank, explaining to them why it's important that we thrive, and explaining to them that yes, we are SaaS, but they have the cash; they can pay 1 year upfront, and that's not, they're not losing money; they're just paying upfront.
Mm.
And that was 1.5 million, and that made a
Wow.
huge difference in our ability to
Of
have
course.
cool-headed, calm, strategic building of how do we get out of COVID. That if we didn't
Mm.
have that 1.5 million, we would be in survival mode, and survival mode is not good for strategic thinking.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's a wonderful thing of that person to do, and you must be, you're right to mention it. And I think
And
it
I'm,
might
I'm,
have
I'm
had a
really,
huge effect on the life of Expensya as well.
absolutely, I'm super grateful to that person, absolutely,
Yeah,
and to that company.
wonderful. And on that note of gratitude, let me express my gratitude to you, and thank you for sharing all these things on the podcast, and hope to meet you sometime face to face.
Thank you, Ali. Hope to meet you as well. Enjoy Egypt. You're in Egypt right now, right?
Yeah, right now I'm in Egypt.
Enjoy Egypt, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Startups Arabia podcast. If there was something you really liked about what the guest said today, reach out to them on social media and tell them what you liked. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You don't want to miss any of our great upcoming episodes. Also, please rate us and give us comments on our social media accounts so that we know how to improve. And also tell us what you like. We don't mind hearing that either. Until next time, this was your host, Ali's Whale.